Hi, Chris McLoone here with Fire Apparatus and Emergency Equipment. Welcome to this episode of Talking Trucks. With me, as always, is Ricky Riley. And today we're going to be talking about the 2027 engines. We've touched on this a couple times. I know we'll be touching on it some more again, probably with articles down the line. If you're going to be at FDIC or any of the trade shows that are coming up, make sure that you stop by whatever engine manufacturer is there to talk to them. But also, and I think we're going to probably stress it a number of times today, talk to your manufacturer. There's still a lot of I don't want to say uncertainty, but there's not like every manufacturer might address the new engines and how they're configured a little bit differently. And that I think is the biggest thing. But that doesn't mean that we can't talk about what we should be doing, the types of questions we should be asking, what we should be doing to prepare. It's March of 2026. 2027 is when these things take effect. And there could come a point this year where maybe some of the engines that pre 2027 may not be available anymore. You never know. So that's what we're here to talk about today, and that's what Ricky and I are going to touch on. Ricky, I mean, it's been an interesting time. We were just talking about the lead times before we started recording. But because of those lead times, there might be orders that, for example, your department has placed that aren't even on the line yet, that may be impacted if the engine isn't purchased yet. So like from a fleet management standpoint and spec standpoint, what are you doing to prepare for these changes to the engines? Like specifically just for your department, like what are you doing to prepare for the changes?
Well, we're pretty blessed because we're buying PACCAR currently, and we don't have any Cummins online yet. Um, and we don't, when we go out to bid this year, obviously we're going to go out to bid, and so we'll have a bunch of different manufacturers come back. And I'm sure that in our specifications, it'll say PACCAR or Cummins, which are, the two motor manufacturers. It's not like you can buy a Detroit anymore or a Mercedes motor and put it in a fire truck. But so for us, the PACCAR we're good to go with them through our orders through almost 2028.
Does
When
that
we
mean
play,
their engines are already set up then, or what does that mean?
I think PACCAR had their discussions with EPA and where we're at with the number of motors they have on order and how many they have built, and then we've had the order placed. So
Gotcha.
I don't know all the idiosyncrasies behind the EPA and what the date has to be, and if you have EPA credits or whatever it is. I wish I hear all these buzzwords. What they actually mean to a end user, for me, is like, okay, so I'm getting a PACCAR motor that's 500 some odd horsepower, and the doghouse is going to be the same. The canister is going to be the same. The DF canister is going to be the same. My components are going to be the same. So now I have 4 years of engines, 4 years of motors, for the next 4 years that I have purchased, that are all going to be the same. For a fleet manager, that is what we want. We want consistency. We don't want to have to change parts and pieces. So now our first PACCARs will be coming in this summer, and then for the next 4 years, our deliveries, which we have the orders for the next 4 years have been placed already. We're going to have everything the same. So for us, that's important. When we go out to bid, here in the next 2 months, we're going to have inviting all these different manufacturers. What they're going to come back with is what's going to be interesting to see, because I think the big part for us is the unknown. And I think regardless of manufacturer, and I believe that I get to kind of have good conversations with some of the top engineers in the business. I'm very privileged to have them as friends and as colleagues. Is that I don't think they know how it's going to affect the cab, and obviously that's always a big point for everybody except the driver. I mean, the driver always gets the room. I mean, they never have to worry about tight spaces or anything like that. The officer will have to worry about it because, what the angle of the doghouse is going to be. And uh, the firefighters in the back are going to have to worry about that doghouse as it extends back into their riding area. And I can remember years ago when we started making some of those changes to the motors. The angles, the shelves, that for lack of a better term, as they come up, they plateau out, and then they might go back up again. All those kind of change with the different motors, the different components that get attached to the motor. Um, so it's pretty important that that, and I don't know that anybody's got an answer for it. I mean, you can conceptually see all that stuff. I mean, the rescue engine that burned up at Kentland was one of the first ones that had this new type motor in it and had all these different angles and everything. And they show you a drawing, and yeah, it looks really nice on a CAD drawing, but till you put it in the fire truck and get it all situated, and how your seats are going to sit, and where the firefighters arms are going to be, and how the headsets are going to hang, how radios are going to hang, how lights are going to be put, how EMS boxes are going to be put in there. That's a big deal. I think that paying attention to that stuff, and I don't know if anybody's even got a CAD drawing regardless of manufacturer. What and it's not Cummins. Don't when I say Cummins, it's not Cummins' fault. I mean, it's the EPA is driving all this, not Cummins isn't going to go, hey, I'm going to build a motor that's going to jeopardize every fire truck in the world because of how big it's going to be. I've got a couple of those written down. They're mandated by the federal government, so that motor's got to fit in a fire truck. So that they're going to have who regardless of manufacturer, they're going to have to make changes to their doghouse. I don't think. I mean, you just can't fit a 12-volt alternator and then turn around and put a 24-volt or a 48-volt. I'm hearing back and forth how many volts this new alternator is going to have to be to power the DEF system, on the new 2027 EPA approved motor. So, I mean, we know how tight it is already underneath the cab of a fire truck and how tight cabs are just based on the doghouses. But now we're going to add a separate alternator, and how big that alternator is going to have to be, and then how big the DEF canister is going to have to be on that motor, how that's going to affect underneath the fire truck, how that's going to affect compartment space. These are all things that all of us have to start thinking about. But I know, Chris, you and I talked about it, and I feel like I'm going through all my points rather quickly, is that no fire department is going, yeah, I need a 2027 motor put in my fire truck. And guess what? Yeah, don't order it till you figure it out. Yeah, nobody's doing that. I've told you, and I've been telling people, get it on order, and worry about it, but it may not be what you like. It may not be what you think it's going to be, because the CAD drawing, if they have one, is not going to match what's going to go inside and how you're going to sit and how things are going to be oriented. And it's challenging, and I don't know how. I don't think the manufacturers, I'm sure it keeps them up at night, but it would keep me up at night if I was buying a fire truck today and had no clue what the back of the fire truck was going to look like with the doghouse, or what the doghouse was going to look like between the officer and the driver. But I mean, that's my job, is to worry about that stuff. I mean, there's some people who wouldn't care about it whatsoever, but it's it's a challenging time, and I just don't know where we're at with it. And I think that until the motor manufacturer comes out and says something, and then the fire apparatus manufacturers, I get to see bulletins, I get to see conceptual drawings of for the manufacturer that I choose, but is it the same for every other manufacturer out there? As the customer, do they get an idea what this thing's going to look like, or do they just go, yep, I need a pumper, order it today, and we'll worry about all that rest of the stuff in 4 years? So
That's kind of what we're faced with right now. Is and it's what you've been preaching. Get it on the books, get it ordered now, get it ordered now. But that's kind of what we're faced with sometimes, is get it ordered now, and we'll deal with the fallout later. But right now, you start ordering it right now. I mean, you're going to have, unless there's an engine you can buy, to ensure that that you have a pre 2027 engine. Pretty soon, that you're not going to have a choice. The truck that you're going to get when it's delivered in 3 years will have that in there. And so I guess that kind of leads me into what are the questions departments should be asking their manufacturer? And because I mean, I think that you do sort of need to get down into the nitty gritty a little bit. It can't be something broad where it's just like, hey, what's going to happen with that 2027 engine? I mean, that you really need to, get granular, not only about the cab, but about the body as well. So are there questions you're asking that you would suggest, are pretty good, no matter what manufacturer you're talking to, these are what you should be asking?
I mean, as a consultant, obviously, being a fleet manager and then, being very fortunate to be able to help fire departments buy fire trucks, on my off days, is that, you got to demand answers. I mean, you can't tell me you're going to sell me this 2027 compliant motor, and can you even tell me how much the motor is going to cost? When it gets to production, if I sign the contract today, and I'm going to get a 2027 EPA approved motor. I don't think, regardless of what the federal government does, I don't think Cummins is going to stop production and go, oh, now we're going to go back to you know pre 2027 EPA standards. I mean, they're in full swing. I can't imagine the money that they've spent to tool up production. That's a huge investment by them to reach that, to get to that point. So, but the manufacturer just can't. I've said it before, man. Is the customers are just not as the customers aren't king anymore. We are driven by what the manufacturer is stuffing down our throats. Is that I have to have a fire truck, so I'm going to get it on order. How what's it gonna look like? You can give me a conceptual drawing from your manufacturer's CAD drawing program, but what it actually is going to look like, I can't go see it. I can't touch it. I can't go look in it and see what this motor is going to have an effect on all that stuff that we talked about before with the doghouse, the seating, where we're going to put all this, what underneath is going to look like, that, and how much cab space or compartment space I might lose. I mean, that is a lot of real estate underneath a fire truck. I mean, if you take the time to stop looking at the lights and the paint, and get the fire truck up on a set of jacks and go underneath of it, there's a lot of real estate taken up by the diesel exhaust system. And those canisters and the systems that are going to be designed for this 2027 motor are going to take up space, and it's got to go somewhere. You know, I is it, you gotta demand it, and I don't know what they're going to tell you. And but yeah, at the end of the day, I mean, like we just said, is that I have to order a fire truck. I mean, I can't wait for them to go. All right, in 2027, we're going to have the motors, the physical motor, and I'm going to be able to design the doghouse. Then I got to build it. Then maybe that'll be 2028. And I'm going to wait that long to order it. Now I'm 2 years behind the curve now. So I think the manufacturer's got us handcuffed as buyers, because we can't go, I need to see this, and demand it from them, and they go, I don't know what to tell you. I don't have a 2027 compliant motor. I can't put it in between the frame rails. I can't tell you how low it's going to sit, underneath the frame rails. I can't tell you how high it's going to be above the frame rails. I can't tell you how long it's going to be between the nose and the tail, and what it's going to look like, and what the cab angles are going to look like. It's frustrating, considering here we are, just maybe 5 years removed, maybe 5 or 6 years removed from COVID, and where custom fire apparatus was built on the buyer's needs, not the manufacturer's requirements. And
It's not
why
the
are you going to get me
manufacturer's
wound up
fault,
today?
though.
Why, Chris? Why are you getting me wound up today?
Well, but it's not, I mean, when we say that, though, I mean, it's they're working with the real estate that they have to
Yes.
try to fit all this stuff together. Um, It's just actually figuring out what the best, I guess, optimized, to use a term, design will end up being. But I think just in the answer you just gave me, you laid out a bunch of things that fire departments ought to be thinking about. They ought to be thinking about they ought to be asking, even if they can't get the answer, they need to be asking the right questions. They can't just let it be what it is. You can't just say, well, it is what it is. I mean, you want to know because you want to be able to try to, I mean, if you could at least give me some idea of how high it's going to come or how low it's going to sit. If you can give me some idea, um, of what type of impact these extra canisters are going to have on the compartmentation the uh, behind the behind a pump panel, for example. But even then, like on a rescue truck, and how does this impact, for example, a rescue truck like you guys have down in Prince George's County, where it's a two-person cab, and the body of the truck sort of comes into where the crew cab would be. What does all that what do all those things, what how do these new engines impact all that? So I mean, I really do think that just in saying, like, no manufacturer right now can tell us how high it's going to sit above the frame rails, how low it's going to sit below the frame rails, where how big the alternator is going to have to be. These are all questions that an educated apparatus purchasing committee should be going in to ask, because they can at least start trying to figure out, like on the alternator side, they can at least start trying to price one of them out. But again, it kind of goes back to a viewpoints question we had not too long ago, about it was about specs, and basically both you and Bill said, who who's writing their own specs anymore? Um, so but the department should still be asking the questions and not just relying on whatever comes out, because um, even though it's a little tougher, the customer still is king in my book. And it may be hard to get what you want, but again, in this case, I feel like it's the manufacturers that have to deal with this unit that they have to place inside. And who knows? I mean, it could end up driving a little bit of innovation, a little bit of maybe the chassis will evolve because of it. I don't know. I mean, you might not physically be able to take it and put it in what we have now, no matter who the chassis manufacturer is. I don't know, but it's definitely worth asking. And if you're getting ready to do this today, yes, the lead times are one thing, but they need to be asking about the motor as well. It's interesting you bring up the cost. You know, that brings up a topic, or just a subject, or a point that you often talk. I think, yeah, you often talk about I'm going to call it a slush fund. I forget.
Mhm.
You call it the
A
bank.
bank. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, you're going to need to probably be putting a little bit more into that bank
Oh
to
yeah.
accommodate. Hopefully, you don't need it, but you're going to need to accommodate, the increased cost of the engine, in your overall truck purchase. So,
But I mean, when in the last, let's go century, or half a century, when have we as fire apparatus purchasers not been able to go look at a design of a fire truck and go, yep, that's that cab right there, that configuration in the back with the seating, that's exactly what I want on our fire truck, and the manufacturer go, no problem, we got it. We can't do that today. I mean, that is, you just can't go, hey, I want this four-door cab. I want to seat six people, and I need room for this, this, and this. And they can tell you whatever they think. Salesmen are salesmen. That's why I can't be a salesman. Oh yeah, we'll take care of it. We'll make it happen. Blah blah blah. but no, they don't know. If they can't tell
Mhm.
me how the engine's going to fit, how are they going to tell me how everything's going to fit back there? And it's not going to look like the fire truck I went and looked at because, but once again, we have never in my lifetime never been able to go look at a fire truck and say, I don't know what it's going to look like when it comes out here 4 years from now. And and I, well, let's do viewpoints here on talking trucks. Is that I don't think the customer is king anymore whatsoever. I've never been told no so many times in the last 2 years from my chosen manufacturer. It to the point where it's almost frustrating. But I meant look at the beat down they're getting. I mean, they have to do something, and if it's shutting Ricky off, then so. But I meant so be it. I mean, is it going to help the overall um, fire delivery time if I shut Ricky's crazy designs off or his customizations? Is it going to speed the lineup? And then, hey, we're going to get it cut from 4 years to 3 years, or 4 years to 2.5, whatever it is. I mean, if that's what they have to do, but I mean, tell me that. Hey, look, man, we can't do all these options. I mean, obviously I think every manufacturer has figured out that, hey, look, if you buy you buy our fire truck with this chassis with only this many options and this many special pricing or special options, we'll get it to you in 2 years. So they're already, they're limiting us, but that's their way of going, hey, look, if you only buy in our box, in this box right here, I can cut down your delivery time by 2 years. So, now they're, so, even the fully customized people, now we're getting cut off at the knees with, hey, this is a way we think we love your fire truck, whoever the manufacturer is. But hey, we want to do this little design tweak or operational tweak or something like that, or mechanical tweak. Nope, can't do it. They won't even give you the I don't want to do it price. Which is usually you tell a manufacturer, hey, I want a compartment with 6 doors and 25/7 shelves, and they go, sure, it's going to cost $34,000. And either they're going to get the $34,000 or they're just throwing a price out there for you to go, no, that's too much money. So I just it's a frustration piece on my part because I like custom fire trucks, but at the end of the day, man, they are doing what they're doing to help the entire fire service. Just because I have to suffer for it, it is what it is. But we are definitely not the kings when we go out there like we were before when we were talking about innovation, talking about customization, and with once again with these new motors, we have no clue how we're going to customize anything because we don't know where it's going to fit. And look, and I challenge any manufacturer to listen to this. You know, put something out. Put a press release out. You know, do a TikTok. Do Instagram. Do something to prove me wrong, prove Chris wrong, or prove Chris right and Ricky wrong. I don't care what it is. Just keep us educated on it. I mean, I think I'm very fortunate on that I'm able to be in such having my fingers on the pulse of the manufacturers, just because of the relationships that I have with all the manufacturers that that I get to deal with, and they're all great, and they're all very honest. And but they can't give me an honest answer about the stuff that I need to know about because they don't have the answer.
They don't know yet. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you can't go, oh, this manufacturer, they have no idea what they're doing with the 2027 motor. And
Well,
neither do
they
the
also
other
don't
four.
want to make the wrong comment either. They don't want to say something can be done if it ends up not being able to be done later. So it's,
Yeah, and
you know,
I
it's
mean, what if I write my specification? The doghouse can be no taller than this and no more wider than this inside the cab. And if I send that out to bid and I'm looking, any modifications after specifications are turned in or your bids turned in is going to cost the manufacturer money. They're just going to go, yeah, we're not bidding this. Ricky's spec is too crazy. We're not going to take the chance of the cost that it's going to cost us on the back end, or they go, okay, we'll bid your fire truck, but what they'll do is they'll put in a Ricky clause, which they'll just add. We're going to add $100,000 onto the bid price because we're not going to lose money because of his crazy dimension requirements. And we're not doing that. I'm just saying that that is a way to think about it, is that, hey, you can't be bigger than this, can't be bigger than that, because I know this is what it's going to look like. But I can't believe you got me wound up like this, Chris, on a Friday on a Friday afternoon. But
Yeah, well, sorry. Everything was going real well until I started. um, but so looking ahead, and I guess this is going to be another question that might be hard to answer. But looking ahead, from that fleet management perspective, what what do the changes in the engines mean? Are you going to have to keep more parts in stock now? I mean, is that the only thing, or like how else does it impact the fleet maintenance operation?
so, obviously, we were a uh, Detroit buyer. Then, Detroit stops building motors for the fire service. Then we become a Cummins customer. Then, now we're going to PACCAR. So, I mean, Detroit's are going to be a problem for everybody as time goes on, just getting parts and pieces. Was it, you know, pre, pre-def, after def, whatever it is. But so now and then what motor did you get from Cummins? And then what is the DEF system? The DEF system is just as important as the motor is, because those are the parts that are crushing fleets. Whether it be my fleet, New York's fleet, you know, your fire department's fleet. DEF systems are what cripples fire trucks now. The DEF headers, the canisters, the clog canisters, the DEF tank, the sending unit, the sensors. That's what's putting fire trucks out of service. I mean, if it was just idler pulley or something like that, I mean that's easy. It's all the DEF stuff is just horrible to deal with, and I don't think that. I think I can say that. I think there's no fire apparatus manufacturer who goes, man, let's put some DEF on fire trucks. That's going to make our lives so much easier. So I mean, that is the big point. So now we're going from, a Cummins DEF system. Is there a fire on my street? A Cummins DEF system to a Packard DEF system. So now we're going to have to stock all those different parts for those different DEF systems in stock, and then now if we get a 2027 motor, now we got to stock all that. Now do we have to stock all the DEF parts? Now we got to stock two different types of alternators, for the motor. So it's becoming an expensive, very expensive process if you want to keep your fleet in service. So if Mark was still in the FDNY, all those people that that are big fleet managers are bigger than me, is that out of service time is crushing us. I don't care what fire department you're in. As I go to these shops and look at these different places, I mean, if you only got two fire trucks and one of them's out of service, man, that's critical to you.
Mhm.
If I have 8 out of service, that's critical to me. For New York, it could be 100. I don't know what their number is, but if it's because of DEF systems and stuff like that, that's crippling. And if you don't have the stuff in stock, it's even worse. I mean, there was a time during COVID, we were trying to find stuff on eBay and trying to find stuff in Facebook Marketplace, anything to try to find a DEF header or this piece for the DEF system, and or an older part for a Series 60. It's just, if you don't have it on the shelf, man, you got to have it on the shelf if you're in a fleet. I believe. Obviously, there's probably better fleet managers than me out there that say, no, we're just going to wait and order it when we get there. But I don't. That stuff does not come in quickly.
Mhm.
Even if I go, hey, I'm overnighting it, or hey, I tell my manufacturer, if that's where I'm buying the parts from, if I'm buying from the manufacturer's stock, as opposed to going the company that actually makes the head. Let's just use a DEF header. If I don't go directly to that company, if I'm just going to use my manufacturers, how many do they have on the shelf, and how quickly can I get it, and how long is the fire truck going to be out of service? So, and then I can after going talking to all my mechanics, it's like, yeah, it's the DEF header, and then you get the DEF header, and then it's something else. It's something else down the line. If you don't have, and if they can't go back to a shelf and grab the part and put it in the fire truck. That just delays things more and more and more. They having a stock on your shelves and it is critical to a fleet. I believe, and I believe it's critical for dealers, regardless of manufacturer, to have that stuff in stock for their customers. Once again, depending on if it's like your firehouse or it's a bigger department like mine, we got to have that stuff there. But it's money. It's just money, 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 money.
Well, not to wind you up even more,
Oh,
but
Jesus Christ.
potentially no. But you know, how are things at the shop right now? I mean, the snow has stopped in this area, so that must have slowed down for you. You guys were pretty busy during those storms. But how are things at the shop? Things pretty? Are they real busy right now? Or because what a lot of people don't know, I mean, about your shop, but just shops in general. There's a lot of other stuff that you guys take on. For example, you're doing all the fit testing and things like that. That's where your department sends everybody to you. You do all the ground ladder testing and the ground ladder repairing. So like there's a lot of different. So how, but how is it right now? Are things a little slow right now, getting a little break, or are they just coming
Slow,
at you hot and heavy all the time? I
slow. I
always
don't know.
get you in trouble because we sit down for the CFSI dinner, and I'll go, "Have you gotten a phone call yet?"
Mhm.
And then within 15 minutes, you're up going, "Thanks a lot, Chris."
Yeah, yeah. Usually I have both phones up to my ear when I'm talking with Chris. But I would say for you West Coast people, if people in the West Coast listen to us, uh, if you don't know what snowcrete is, let me give you a class on it. It is sucks. Uh, so that was us getting. We got to think about 8 to 10 inches of snow, and then 3 to 4 probably inches of ice on top of it, and it did not want to move. So I had a very interesting talk with one of the chief officers high in the department, and I'm complaining about the amount of damage we're doing to our apparatus with this snowcrete because they think they can drive through it or they cut a corner a little tight, and obviously lanes are diminished and everything, but so with snow it'll move. With snowcrete, it doesn't move, and they're ripping drains off, ripping trays off, ripping you know um, power distribution boxes off, and I'm just like pulling my hair out. I mean, because we did the storm from February 24th to February 2nd. That was our operational period, and the amount of damage that we did, the amount of accidents that we had was pretty significant. Um, but so I'm talking to one of the chief officers, high in the department about it. He's letting me vent, and I appreciate him letting me do that. And he's like, "Well, Ricky, you got to understand, we haven't had a major snowstorm in 7 years." He goes, "We have hired, uh, you know, 400 people in 7 years that have never been through a snowstorm like this, and we've never had this event." And I'm like, I guess that thanks for letting me know. Still doesn't help me with my problem, but yeah, it was a very busy time, and I'm sure I know I'm not the only department that went through this and suffered through this. Just the amount of damage that gets done by hitting this snowcrete. What it was coined here in the Washington metropolitan area. I'm sure it was everywhere else, but uh, it's it kept us very very busy. We had mechanics on duty 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for that entire time, just to fix fire apparatus when they came in. Because I mean, when they break those drains off and or break the power distribution boxes, that stuff, bend tailboards, rip that. We got to get them back in service to serve the public. And once again, can't say enough about the mechanics. Herculean effort by them. The amount of time that they put in, the amount of time that they stayed. And I've talked about that before. Is that I never really they the employees that I have are not clock punchers. So it's in at 7, out at 3. I mean, they care about the rigs that are on the road. They care about the firefighters that are riding them, the paramedics that are riding them. So they put in that extra effort. They put in the time. They understand that they're essential employees, and they put their family and their needs on the back burner to help the citizens of my county, to provide fire protection, EMS services. And they did a phenomenal job, and they don't get nearly the credit that they deserve, and I'm sure that's for mechanics from across the country that don't get the credit that they deserve for what they do for all their fire departments. So, it's definitely been a very busy time though. So.
Well, looking ahead, not to 2027 engines, but looking to what's coming next month at FDIC. How's the workshop that you and Champ are doing coming along, and how's your classroom session coming along?
Hold on a minute. When's FDIC again?
Oh, yeah. Well, you got a
Jesus.
little bit of time.
Oh.
David will be calling soon.
Whew. I think the class, we took a spin off of our podcast, Talking Trucks, and I named it Talking Rigs, just to go in there and have those discussions. Obviously, 2027 Motors is going to be in there. Delivery times will be in there. Costs will be in there. What we've learned about fleet maintenance in the last year will certainly be in there. So a lot of that stuff's going in there. A lot of a lot of my frustrations. I've been writing notes as we've been talking, to go on about in the class. So it's an hour 45 minutes. It's 10:30 on Wednesday at FDIC. So I'll be coming straight from class to go to our board meeting that we have, and then the very next day is Champ. Champ will meet me on Tuesday and go, here's all my changes to the class, and I'll go sit and lock myself in a room and get the presentation all ready. Champ, all I need to do is show him a picture, and he can talk for an hour on a picture. So, phenomenal instructor. If you haven't signed up for Tower Ladder Tactics, please do so. I go to learn from Champ. I'm just very fortunate enough to be able to help him, and listen to all the stuff that he's learned over his many tenured years in the FDMY, and just as a firefighter in general, just not on an officer, lieutenant, just not on tower ladders, but stuff in general. So I'm very excited about that. Obviously, very excited about our board meeting. I don't know what you're going to rope me into this year, but I'm all for it. I'm anxious to see what it's going to be out at FDIC. Hopefully, it's pictures of buildings being expanded at all the manufacturers, posters that say we've hired this many more people, because I think that is more important than any shiny fire truck. That for me is that tell me what you're doing to cut down our lead times. Tell me what you're doing about 2027 motors. Tell me what you're doing about the cost of a fire truck. The more lawsuits that are getting filed, I haven't been following that other than on Kurt Verone's website, about that stuff. But I know Kansas City, I think Milwaukee. You looked at the website. Yeah, I think Milwaukee area has filed a lawsuit about all that sort of stuff. So I don't know where any of that's going or how it's going, but I certainly have seen a lot from different manufacturers telling us what they're doing to help cut down some of that time, and I think that's important. And I think that's important discussion to have at a booth at FDIC, especially with fleet managers, or even your firehouse. You've talked about you guys are buying a new rig. Is that what are you doing to help me get this fire truck quicker? You got a beautiful fire truck here. It looks great. I don't know what it's going to look like with a 2027 motor in it. So it's really great that cab looks like that, but I don't know what a 2027 motor is going to look like. So bring 3D print something. I don't know. Do 3D print a cab. Send it to FDIC.
I think that's the critical thing, that you just mentioned. And it's funny, I just edited an article that talked about, that kind of gave a background on, the exhibitor side of the experience, where, that FDIC, gives you the opportunity to meet with those engineers. Most of the time, the engineers are there, the higher ups and the companies are there. And that's really a critical time to ask these types of questions, because you got the people right there. It's not a more regional show where it's going to be a dealer who may not have the same information just yet. Not that that's a bad thing, because you always need to make those relationships with the dealers. But FDIC has a different group of people in the booth. So, make sure if you are going out, make sure that you take advantage of that, because there's a lot out there right now. There's a lot of noise out there about a lot of things when it comes to building fire trucks, and this is a good opportunity to kind of get the skinny on what's actually going on. And don't forget, you know, some of the engine manufacturers are going to be there as well. You can go straight to them and ask them some of these questions as well. So that's a critically important aspect of this.
I think well, maybe we'll see how the manufacturers listen. I'm sure they're on waiting for this podcast to come out and listen to me talk about it. But if you're on the podcast, if you don't know, Chris's son goes to the Naval Academy and he wants to be an aviator, correct?
He's actually talking about getting into the Marines now.
Oh, that's right. That's right. I think it's another gentleman I know is the aviators that, in the aircraft carrier, they wear all the different shirts and they have the different colors and it tells you what job it is. I think when you walk into a booth at a manufacturer, engineers should wear a certain color shirt and it should say engineer across it so you know who to go to talk to. I'm a salesperson. I think they should all have their names on there, not just some little name tag that you have to get up close to them and take a look at it. They should all have bright shirts so you know who to go talk to. I'm an engine engineer. I'm a aerial engineer, and go talk to. I think I'm going to suggest that when I go to my manufacturer next week.
There you go. You'll have a good opportunity to do so.
Yeah. Crazy Ricky's here. You got a crazy idea, but I mean, I'm very excited to go out and see what's going on out there. And obviously, I want to see what a new 2027 motor is going to look like. But once again, it's going to be sitting on a showroom floor, not between frame rails, and what it's going to be like. So it'll be interesting, to say the least.
Well, Ricky, thank you again for sitting down today. I'm sorry to wind you up like that. I'm actually sometimes not sure what question to ask that's not going to get you going. I'll keep thinking about it though.
Chris, you're not the first person to say that in my life. So.
But thank you very much for sitting down with me today. For previous Talking Trucks episodes, you can always go to www.fireapparatus.com/podcast. If you have a topic you'd like Ricky and I to touch on, let me know. I'm at chris.mcclune@clarionevents.com. And speaking of FDIC, don't forget you will need to register for the Riley and Champo class, so tower ladder tactics. So you will need to register for that, and you can do that at FDIC.com. So again, this has been Chris McClune along with Ricky Riley. Thanks a lot, everybody. Have a good one and stay safe. Thanks again, Ricky.
Thanks, Chris.